We need an ambulance.
Your mom fell?
Look, 2 stories, yeah.
Is she breathing?
Is she breathing? I don't know. Oh my God.
This is Aya Altantawi, and she's just found the body of her mother, Nada Hirania, fallen from the 2nd floor of her own home.
1,
Okay.
2, 3, 4.
But what seemed like a tragic fall would soon take a dark turn when the CCTV revealed a mysterious shadow hinting towards a far more disturbing story. As the investigation unfolded, a sadistic plot of staging her murder began to unravel, with her own family at the center of it all.
I don't want to say anything about my sister, but I mean, if it comes down to it, then yeah, she was awake before me.
I need to not tell me now. I don't want to go any further.
He was the one who pressured his son, the killer. We don't understand how this killer was able to carry out this dreadful scheme that was planned out by his father.
On the morning of August 21st, 2017, Michigan police received a frantic call from 14-year-old Aya Altantawi, who had just found her mother in an hysterical state.
I told him Mom was outside, and I started running downstairs. He was following me, and I called 911.
We need an ambulance. Oh my God.
While police swiftly moved to reach their home in the 36,900 block of Howard Street in Farmington Hills, Aya rushed to her elder brother, 16-year-old Mohammed Altantawi, for help. Both of them did everything they could to save their mother, clinging to hope as chaos unfolded around them.
9,
10, 11, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. You have to pick up the pace.
Wait, okay. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3.
So what happened to your mom there?
Looks like she fell off the building.
How did she fall?
I didn't go into the room. I just screamed. I couldn't look.
Mohammed gave his mother CPR as Aya flagged down the approaching police car and paramedics. As officers entered their home, medics immediately began efforts to revive Nada, while law enforcement started searching for clues to understand what had led to the incident. The 2 teenagers also explained that they and their youngest sister were the only individuals in the house, and to their knowledge, no one else had entered the house that night or in the morning.
So I saw the window was open and it wasn't, but they were cleaning supplies, and I know she was cleaning some things in the morning. She wakes up early.
Officers also noticed a stepladder in the guest bedroom from which Nada had supposedly fallen, and streaks of cleaning supplies on the window pane. On the ground near her, they noticed a wet towel. These details seemed to support Aya's suspicion that her mother might have fallen while cleaning the window. But little did they know, this seemingly accidental fall was hiding a far darker truth than anyone could imagine, one that had been in plain sight all along. As investigators worked to determine the cause of her fall, Nada's estranged husband, Basil Altantawi, also arrived at the scene. Although the two were separated and were in the middle of a divorce, he was visibly shaken at the sight of his wife and struggled to keep himself together. Despite all the struggles and efforts to revive Nada, she was pronounced deceased at the scene.
The photographs were projected on the screen in the conference room, and our colleague started reporting on the case and said, I believe that she died from those injuries that she sustained.
According to the autopsy report, Nada had died from either falling or jumping out of the window. An accidental fall seemed unlikely, and it appeared more plausible that Nada had jumped intentionally, according to her own son's claims.
One of the questions was, has your mother ever tried to kill herself? Or was she ever suicidal, depressed, that sort of thing? And I immediately was like, no, she hasn't. And my brother was like, no, actually she has.
Mohammed said their mother had tried to overdose on pills a few years back. His claims initially seemed to explain Nada's death. But as Dr. Lubisha studied her photos more closely, something didn't sit right. It was with these suspicions that the biggest breakthrough in what looked like a suicide was about to unfold, one that would change everything the officers thought they knew. He noticed signs in the images that didn't align with a simple fall, and with that, their suspicions began to grow.
There was a deep kind of scrape right above her mid-forehead, and it struck me that this type of injury to the scalp, I would expect to bleed pretty heavily, but there was no blood there. The enigma here was actually how she came to her death.
There was also no bleeding from Nada's brain, elbows, or legs. The implication suggested a chilling theory that her heart had stopped even before she ever hit the ground. As investigators looked around and began asking questions, a devious plot started to emerge, one that hinted the crime was not only staged, but also caught on camera. While there were no signs of forced entry or struggle, something stood out: a camera placed near the fall site. It might have captured Nada's final moments or the truth behind her death. However, they were unaware of the discovery they were about to make that would flip the entire case on its head. They pulled the footage and began scanning the timeline. They finally found the moment of her fall, but that wasn't the most crucial discovery they made, but it was something else: a shadow. This shadow wasn't normal, but painted a far darker picture behind Nada's death. It was an odd silhouette lurking near the window, barely visible, but they noticed something strange. The shadow was lifting something, followed by Nada's body plummeting to the ground, unresponsive. Nada was also found by paramedics lying on her back, which was an unusual position to land from an accidental fall. It didn't add up, and that's when the doubts hardened into suspicion. This footage and the position of her body became the turning point in the case, as now it was no longer a question of an accident or suicide. This was now a homicide. Meanwhile, forensic experts also determined her cause of death not to be falling, but asphyxiation, and she also had blunt force injuries to her head. This meant someone had deliberately pushed her down to make it look like an accident. But her body told the truth. This was no fall, rather a calculated murder. With this new lead, wasting no time, investigators began questioning those close to Nada, trying to uncover who might have had a reason to harm her. And soon they received a name.
And it was like, what? What do you mean Nada's dead? I mean, I was crying for weeks and weeks after this happened because she was such a sweetheart. My brain first went to the husband. I mean,
we all
with
did.
all I knew.
Yeah, we all did.
Basil quickly came on the radar, given the strained nature of his relationship with Nada. Investigators decided to dig deeper into their past, hoping to uncover any motive he might have had. They learned that the couple had moved from Syria to the US in search of a better life. Once here, Basil opened an urgent care clinic, but soon found himself in legal trouble. A man once trusted with saving lives had now become entangled in fraud. He was involved in a criminal investigation into his urgent care clinic, which resulted in the loss of his medical license, a substantial fine, and a guilty plea to felony health insurance fraud. Meanwhile, tensions in their marriage were also growing. Nada had begun to push back against Basil's controlling behavior, and conflicts between them became more frequent.
My dad, at this point, he's in his room trying to close the door, and my mom's outside of the room, and her hand was between the crack of the door and the wall, and my dad slammed the door and closed on her hand. Yeah, really painful.
Her daughter had to call the police, and Basil was arrested on a domestic violence charge. He later pleaded no contest, resulting in probation. The court also ordered him to stay away from Nada and only meet his children under supervision. Shortly after, in 2016, Nada separated from her husband and filed for divorce following an incident when her husband allegedly threw her down a flight of stairs. Basil moved out while Nada took care of their 3 children. She also began working as a professional trainer at the Franklin Athletic Club to support the family. In the meantime, Nada made personal choices that further widened the rift. As the divorce progressed, Nada also began seeing a man she met at the gym.
She wasn't really being submissive anymore. She wasn't being like, yeah, like I'll do whatever you want. She's like, I'm going to be a personal trainer. This is what I want to do. He absolutely lost it.
When he showed up on the day of her death, it was the first time in a year for her kids to see him. Even then, he reflected on his behavior.
The first thing he says to me is, Aya, what are you wearing? You're going to go to hell if you keep dressing like that.
The growing suspicion from Nada's close ones, along with mounting evidence, made Basil their prime person of interest. The shadow in the footage could very well be him. To confirm his involvement or find any possible clue, Their son Mohammed was interviewed the day after the murder in their home, where his father was already there taking care of the three of them.
Sorry, what's your name again, sir? Mohammed. Again, we're sorry about your loss. I'm sure it's tough. Would you know if somebody came over to the house last night?
I should, yeah.
I mean, would there be like a door chime or anything like that?
Yeah, the thing is, on Sunday, I had pretty bad ear infections, so I couldn't really hear from one ear.
He said he learned something was wrong when his sister came running to him, but then he said something that brought another person under their suspicion.
So then we ran across, all the way around the house, and then I didn't really know what to do from there. So I went back inside, brought some water for her, went back outside, and then that's when the operator was trying to do the CPR.
Somebody was there. We know that. It's on video. So we know that somebody was there when it happened.
I don't want to say anything about my sister, but I mean, if it comes down to it, then yeah, she was awake before me. That's what I have to say.
Mohammed attempted to cast suspicion on Aya, but soon his trick came crumbling down as the CCTV footage clearly showed that the person responsible had short hair, while Aya's long hair instantly ruled her out. He then made a statement that completely contradicted his previous claims.
You're telling me right now that you weren't in the room, like maybe helping her clean the windows or holding the ladder or anything like that when this happened, when this accident happened?
No.
I mean, now's the time. If we're gonna be honest about it, we got to be honest about it now.
I saw her walking upstairs with some stuff, and then she said to go get a spray bottle, and then I brought her that, and then that's it. I left.
There's got to be more. I can tell by the way, you're going to feel a lot better, so we can get this explained out as an accident. Is that what happened?
It's my mom's life, man.
Just tell us. You've gone this far, bud.
The detectives also attempted to discuss CCTV evidence, hoping he might slip up.
So what time does she normally go to bed?
Normally I'd say around 10, maybe. Late 9:30.
9:30 or 10? Do you recall what time she went to bed last night?
Around late 7, maybe early 8, I think.
You know why she would go to bed 3 hours earlier, or?
No. Like I said, we didn't really talk much yesterday.
Did you get up at all during the night? Were you walking around anywhere? Nothing. So go to sleep at 11:30. You don't hear anything, don't see anything, don't come out of your room. Get up at 6:30, 6-ish,
yeah.
And you go into the bathroom, you take a shower.
Yeah.
You're getting ready for school.
Yeah.
Now we noticed that, there's a security system here. Do you know how that works?
No, I wasn't even aware of that. We had more cameras in the back of the house.
We want to get a resolution to this. I know you do too.
Yeah.
The actions happen all the time.
Mohammed's hesitation didn't escape the detective's keen eye, as it suggested that Mohammed wasn't just lying, he might be hiding something far more sinister. Under mounting pressure, Mohammed finally admitted he was in the room with his mother, holding the ladder as she cleaned the windows. But then he presented an entirely different story. He now claimed that Nada had slipped, and despite his efforts to catch her, she'd fallen on the ground.
I looked down, I didn't want to do it. I was dreaming, so I went to my room immediately, and I just wanted to forget about it. Because I just saw my mom fall, man.
Sensing he could be their potential suspect, they pressed him harder to spill the truth, and this time, Mohammed was ready to break his silence to expose what really happened inside the room in his own narrative. But what exactly might he weave into his words that would raise more questions than answers?
But you're telling me right now that you weren't in the room, maybe helping her clean the windows or holding the ladder or anything like that when this happened, when this accident happened? I mean, now's the time. If we're gonna be honest about it, we got to be honest about it now. You remember everything else. It seems like you remember getting water, talking to dispatchers, and doing CPR, and getting up in the morning, getting ready for school and stuff like that. So that happened at that time. So if you remembered all that, you should remember what happened then, is what we're saying. I mean, if you were in the room with her, then just say you were in the room with her.
Like I told you, she was going upstairs to clean the window, stuff like that. And then I went back upstairs, and then she was cleaning the window, and then she's like, in English, bring me something to clean the window with. So I brought her the spray bottle, and then she already had a ladder in there, or stool, or whatever it's called. She went on the ladder. She sprayed it already. And then she tried to lean over. I was standing there, holding the ladder. And just looking around, not really. I mean, I'm holding it. I don't think I'm supposed to look at it the whole time. So I'm holding it. And then she leans over and she trips, and then something got stuck on. I don't know what it was. So I went over like that. And that's when she fell, and I didn't know what to do, so I just went.
It does, and you know it does, right?
Helen.
I'm not going to go against what you're saying. I'm just going to agree with what you say.
You know what I say. You know what it shows. And you know what you just told us.
What happened?
Mohammed clearly attempted to twist a theory that Nada slipped on her own, and he'd even tried to save her, but couldn't, implying it was an accident. However, his statement completely contradicted what the medical examiner affirmed, that Nada was already dead before she fell out of the window. This strongly suggested Mohammed was not telling the truth, but before officers could ask him further, Basil interrupted them.
I need an attorney now. I don't want to go any further. You're investigating a child here.
This significant statement highlights the strained relationship between Nada and her son, Mohammed. As Nada becomes more confident with her newfound life and freedom, the emotional distance between her and Mohammed widens. Additionally, the officers also found something in the laundry, a discovery too strange to ignore, when they recalled an odd detail that they'd noticed on the morning of the murder. Inside the front-loading washing machine, they discovered a small load with just a few items. Through the glass door of the dryer, they spotted a tan bath mat, along with a pair of Mohammed's blue jeans and a shirt. Small white flakes had come loose in the water, likely from the bath mat's coating. This mat, along with the chemically scented towel found next to Nada and other similar items throughout the house, raised further suspicion. Even Nada's own friends recalled their last conversation with her, which only seemed to make sense to them now.
She said that Mohammed felt that everything that went wrong in the family, everything was all because of her. Blamed for everything.
And the more Americanized she became, the worse it got.
Yeah. I will always have my daughters, but to my son, I'm dead.
However, these things alone clearly couldn't explain how a son could possibly kill his own mother. Yet, all the evidence pointed directly at Mohammed, resulting in his arrest. Unbeknownst to him, the storm was just moments away as a long, strenuous battle lay ahead that would not only determine his fate, but also uncover a series of shocking events. Before the trial began, Mohammed's attorney, Michael Shano, raised critical questions about the circumstantial evidence.
I don't believe Mohammed did this. That's a shadow being reflected off the house onto this left side of the screen here. You can't make out the sex, the size, the age of anyone in a shadow.
Shano argued that the entire case raised a red flag, especially considering Mohammed's age, just 16 years old, which made the accusation questionable. According to Shano, Mohammed's physical limitation made it unlikely he could overpower his mother. Furthermore, the timeline of events also posed a major issue. The children had to wake up at 6 a.m., yet the CCTV footage showed the incident occurring at 5:55 a.m., leaving merely 5 minutes to commit such a heinous crime and cover it up. Shano questioned how a 16-year-old could clean up the crime scene in just 5 minutes. He also criticized the detective's handling of a juvenile suspect.
I mean, you have 3 officers surrounding him at a table.
You weren't in the room, like maybe helping her clean the windows or holding the ladder or anything like that?
When you feed someone that young a story like that, they're going to appease the older person.
Michael Shano's defense was not over yet, as he was also determined to prevent the use of the audio of Mohammed's interrogation in court, which resulted in an appeal to the Michigan Supreme Court. To everyone's disbelief, the surprising twist was that this appeal was approved by the prosecutors, who agreed not to use the audio of the interrogation. However, the prosecutors weren't swayed by this sudden decision, as they were ready to proceed with a profound and incriminating revelation found on Mohammed's phone in an upcoming trial. Finally, the trial began in March 2022, and the prosecutors were prepared to challenge the defense's arguments with a series of evidence. Firstly, the lead detective, Richard Webby, concluded that the crime scene was staged.
I saw the Tilex there, and I thought that that was very odd. I've never seen or heard of anybody cleaning windows with Tilex.
They also presented their damning piece of evidence that left no further questions.
It appears to be a head covered in shorter hair. The witnesses at the time advised that the only male in the house, the only person with short hair, was the defendant. He was very half-hearted. At some point during the time where he's still counting out loud to the dispatcher, the defendant stopped giving CPR altogether. He was just counting.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Just when the jury thought they'd heard it all, a silent witness told the story itself. The wet towel found at the crime scene explained two theories at once. Firstly, that towel carried the scent of Nada's body, and secondly, it pointed to the cause of her death.
Evidence techs reported as smelling like naphthalene or something to that nature.
Some kind of chemical.
Some kind of chemical. The findings in the lungs were characteristic of nasal-oral blockage.
Somebody putting a pillow over the face or a cloth or suffocation.
Well, you can think of various things.
These two explanations led to a single disturbing theory. Possibly, Nada was being suffocated with the towel placed over her face. If so, it explained everything against Mohammed. However, Mohammed's defense lawyer wasn't willing to back down and decided to present an audio recording that highlighted the nature of Mohammed's dynamic relationship with his parents.
How are you? Do you and your mom get along well?
Yeah, I mean, we're pretty normal. We've been pretty normal for like a while. The only time I told you this morning, we kind of had issues, you could say, is at the beginning of like the divorce case, but that's
All right. So, like, how often do you talk to your dad?
say pretty like maybe every 4 days.
3 or 4 days. Your dad pretty close?
Yeah.
All right. I mean, if you had an issue or a problem, would you go to your dad or your mom?
I go to my mom first because she's my, immediately there.
Mhm.
And then if it's like something major, like my mom can't handle it, then I'll.
Okay.
Michael Shano's defense further argued that Mohammed shared an equal bonding with both his parents, especially with Nada. They emphasized that whenever he felt anxious or worried, he often turned to his mother for comfort and guidance, even choosing her over his father, challenging the prosecutor's belief that he saw his mother as protector and problem solver then, indicating a deep level of trust. So why would he harm the person he relied on most? However, Shano had no idea that all the evidence presented by prosecutors were merely the uppermost layer of evidence, whereas beneath the surface, earth-shattering clues were about to be disclosed when the prosecutor presented Mohammed's cell phone and how he named his mother.
His contact name for Nada was Dog. That was his name for his mom in his contacts.
All of the prosecutor's claims indicated that Mohammed was responsible for his mother's death. But before the defense lawyer could raise any question about his motive, the prosecutor sealed his fate with damning proof, concluding that Nada was ready to provide criminal evidence that could send Basil to jail.
His whole goal was to prevent that deposition from happening on the 23rd, and that's exactly what he did.
Those text messages were not alone to prove his motive. Aya also indicated the extent of Mohammed's actions toward their mother, who was soon presented as a witness.
When the divorce case started, he was very against it because he kind of saw it as my mother was trying to take my father's money, my father's house, destroy our family, rip our family apart.
When your brother addressed your mother, did you tell what kind of a tone he was using toward her?
Very aggressive. And my brother basically just responded, "It doesn't matter. You already did this, like you're gonna get what's coming to you."
All these explanations culminated when the prosecutor delivered another breathtaking revelation. Mohammed had taken pictures of the crime scene before committing his evil deed.
They were photographs of the same window from which her body was dropped out of on August 21st.
This significant discovery on Mohammed's phone clearly explained that he'd been scheming his mother's death for a week before he actually committed the act, indicating it was not accidental, but a calculated and premeditated action, finally leaving no room for him to escape. Despite this, one question still lingered in the detectives' minds. Was he alone when committing the crime, or was someone else involved? This was answered when a prosecutor presented one final, gripping piece of proof that showed that just minutes before the murder, Mohammed had made 20 calls to his father, Basil, strongly suggesting his father's involvement. But was that enough to charge Basil as well? Unfortunately, Basil had a strong alibi, telling the jury that he was wearing a band which clearly showed his location was far away from the crime scene. This completely ruled out any suspicion on him, resulting in no conviction.
Is it your belief that your father actually wanted your mother to be killed?
Yes.
That he counseled your brother to kill her?
Yeah.
No way to prove that.
On the other hand, every piece of evidence pointed to Mohammed, leading the jury to find him guilty of first-degree premeditated murder. Finally, on September 21st, 2022, Mohammed Altantawi was sentenced to 35 to 60 years in prison. 6 months later, Mohammed delivered his speech after sentencing, showing no remorse for his mother's death, which involved his father as well, who only cared about defending his son. Despite their ignorance, Aya was also present there, facing the most tremendous pain of her life.
I am innocent. I have never wavered, nor will ever waver in that truth.
He was a loving, and he's still a loving, caring, supportive human being.
I mean, that was my breaking point, the sentencing. I absolutely lost it. I started yelling at him.
You are absolutely nothing.
After the sentencing, Aya cut ties with her brother and father. She went into foster care, while her sister remained in her father's care, leading to almost no contact with her too. Now Aya dreams of becoming a lawyer to stand up for kids like her.